Hey there neighbors, Kevin with etrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the RoadActive custom leaf spring enhancement kit here on our 2020 Ford F-150. So our neighbor today is actually another employee in here. He is our quality control person and he loves to test out products. He originally bought this truck specifically to tow a travel trailer, and he's done a bunch of different reviews on different items for that trailer and his towing experiences. And he's planning a big 2,000-mile trip. He's going to be going from all the way in Wentzville, Missouri, out through Colorado and back. And he wanted to make sure that he had the best ride quality that he could, because he's gone out on a few trips and the air springs that he installed previously were giving him some issues when he would use his weight distribution hitch. So he wanted to make sure that he could swap over to something else that wasn't going to fight his weight distribution hitch as much and still maintain that nice stability and handling here. So we swapped him out over to the RAS or RoadActive suspension system, and this is going to be a spring that's going to be pulling up on the back of your leaf springs, and then it's going to have a bracket that's going to mount up to the spring stack. So this is essentially kind of preloading your leaf spring here, and then this coil spring that we have here is going to be taking up that weight. So when we go and we throw a load into the back of the truck or we hook up to our trailer, it's going to start sagging that spring down. Well, now he has a coil spring in place that's going to help prevent that, because now the coil spring has to be activated first before the leaf spring is going to start taking on that load. This is the heavy duty version, and there is a regular standard version as well. So the standard version is going to have a 2,000 pound capacity spring, and then this one with the heavy duty is going to have a 3,000 pound capacity. Now that does not mean that you can just throw 3,000 pounds in here. That's not adding to the capacity of the truck. You are still limited to what the truck can handle. This is just there to help lift you back up when you have a heavy load and keep your ride nice and level, because when you have all this weight back here and it's sagging the suspension, you're now putting way more pressure on the rear tires, so they're going to run down a whole lot quicker. You're going to have uneven wear up front, because now we're taking the load off of the front axle and bringing it all back here. And then on top of that, the front axle is the majority of your steering, so your handling and then also your braking power. So if you start losing your handling and your braking power while towing a trailer, you're not really going to have a good towing experience. On top of that, your headlights are now going to be aiming up at the sky instead of down at the road where they need to be. So dealing with the sag at the back is going to help prevent that trailer from swaying behind you and all of the other maintenance items that we just referred to here, so that you can avoid all those high costs and keep your truck running nice and smooth. Now the installation is bolt on, there's no drilling, luckily with this one. So there is a spacer that's going to have to go on your jounce spring here. So we did have to pop that off, put on the spacer, put that into it, and we were all good to go. If you look here, the end of it is a hook, which is just going to match up with the eyelet on your leaf spring. And then the other side is an adjustable bracket, and that bracket is adjustable because this is going to fit a wide variety of trim packages and different vehicles. If you look at the instructions, they have different instructions depending on all of these different factors. With ours today, it's an F-150, and the only other kind of difference that they had in the instructions was if this was a trimmer package, you would possibly also have a adjustable lever that's in here that's going to help kind of control your ride quality. And if that was the case, you'd be switching over to the second hole instead of the first hole on that bracket. But other than that, this is a super easy install. You could probably do it in about 15 minutes per side. Now I would highly recommend taking the wheel off. I tried doing the driver's side with the wheel on and just kind of from the inside, and it took a lot more time because now I'm kind of fighting around with the other hardware and lines and stuff that are already ran on the vehicle over there. Whereas on this side, with the wheel off, I just set it right in place, tensioned it, and then we threw the jounce spring back on and we're all ready to go. Now, the only other thing with that is sometimes you don't really feel comfortable getting down there, working on your vehicle. If you're that kind of person, then we do have a solution for you. You can use our dealer locator and just enter in your zip code to find a shop near you, get it professionally installed, and be all ready to tow. If you are wanting to do this yourself though, stick around and I'll walk you through the process. So to start off our installation, I've jacked up the truck by the frame. I've got a jack stand under the eyelet on our suspension here, so for that leaf spring. Now you don't want to support your suspension. You want that to have the nice arch that we have going. We want that to kind of be weighed down on its own, because we don't want to throw off how tight it's going to be. Then when we throw the wheel on and take the jack stand down, the tension's not right with our RAS system here. So what we're going to do next is get this ready to actually go on here. Now it's going to be too short to start off because they kind of bring it in a bunch. That way when it goes to shipping, it's not taking up as much room. So I'm going to pop out this bolt. This is going to be going up against our leaf spring pack, and it's going to sit nice and tight up against it. And to pop it on, we will stick the hook end over the eyelet at the back of our leaf spring. So just throw it up on here. Now you don't have to remove the wheel to do this, but it is so much easier if you do. So I highly recommend doing it. I've done it before just on the lift, and it is a little bit of a pain trying to get everything in place otherwise. Now to lengthen it, we're going to loosen up our jam nuts here. Bring about halfway. And then I'm going to stick those two kind of tight together, and we'll take a 24mm wrench. We're going to hold that on. And that's going to hold this gold rod right here while we crank on the nut up top here to lengthen this out enough, because we want this to go far enough out that we can have our bolt sit right here at the edge of our spring pack. And on this side, I'm using a 14mm socket. You can also just kind of move the spring with your hand too, but I find using a wrench a lot easier here. Alright, let's see if we got enough length. Getting pretty close, we need a little bit more. There we go, we got more than enough space there, so we can now slip in our bolt. And I'm going to go with the bolt head side facing towards the inside here. Oh, just forgot my sleeve. Put the sleeve on. Line up our bolt. Pass that through, and then we have a lock nut that's going to go on the inside. And we can start to tighten that up if we wanted to, but I'm going to leave that loose for just right now, because now we're going to tension this up, and as we tension it, it's going to slowly lift itself up and be resting up against our spring stack and our leaf spring. And that's exactly where we want that. We want that as tight up against that corner as we can. So once again, we're with the 14mm socket and 24mm wrench, and we will just start tightening this down. And that's starting to move on me. I'm going to need to re-jam these together. Alright, we're at a point now where this is fully reached up here to the leaf spring pack, and now we're starting to fight it tension-wise. So it's a good time to go and grab your white or black chip that they give you in your kit, and that's going to be what we use to determine our tension here. So the white one's going to be a little bit less tension than the black one. That's going to be the full force there. And those are about the size of a dime or a nickel, depending on which one you are using. And that is just a backup in case you ever lose those little chips. You can also just use some pocket change. While you're tightening this down, it's important to make sure that your hook is centered on your leaf spring. Otherwise, it's going to kind of throw it off just a bit. So make sure you have that centered, and if you start getting too tight to where it's kind of pulling it out of the way, then you're going to want to loosen, readjust yourself, make sure you keep that centered, and then get back to tightening it down. Alright, so as we tension this, you're going to start to see little gaps forming. We're almost able to get that white chip through, but just not quite there, so we're going to have to keep going. Close, really close. It's almost passing through, but we're getting some resistance, so we're maybe just a couple of cranks away. All right, our white chip is able to easily just pass through, right through the center, so we know that's good. So at this point, we can now loosen up those jam nuts. We're going to be jamming those against our spring here. That way our spring can't move. Grab a second wrench. We'll hold this side, that way when we tighten it, we don't have it shifting on us. Next, I'm going to snug down the bracket up to our sleeve right here. So we're not going to be torquing this, it's just going up until the sleeve is nice and close up against the bracket here. So for the bolt head side, we got a 10mm hex bit, and on the nut side, I have a 19mm wrench. Now it's drawn in the bracket. And that's right where we want to be. So now all that's left is putting the spacer on for our jounce bumper. Now, our neighbor today had airbags on previously. I already took those off before we started this, and he had already thrown away his jounce bumpers, so he ordered some new ones. And it's super important that you have those new, or have the original jounce bumpers plus the bolt that runs through the weld nut in your frame, because we're going to be using that on our spacer block to mount that up, and then they're going to have a new bolt for you to mount the jounce bumper to the spacer block. So here's our factory jounce bumper. Here's our factory jounce bumper bolts. Here's our spacer block, and then the hardware that comes with our spacer block. They're going to give you a short bolt and a long bolt. Depending on the trim package you have, you might need to swap to the longer bolt. In our case, we just have the standard lariat package here, and the short bolt's going to be just enough for us. We don't need to worry about it. We'll drop that in through the top, because this is going to sit up against our frame rail just like this. They even have a little note on there on the bottom showing, hey, this needs to be going out towards the wheel. So our factory bolt is going to slip into that hole over here, and this is moving us over probably half an inch, maybe a little bit more than that, just to get this away from the RAS system, because we don't want our jounce bumper coming down and then hitting it and tearing up the jounce bumper here. So I'm going to throw this longer bolt to the side. We're going to be using our flange nut that comes with it, and that's going to mesh up with our jounce bumper just like so. We'll run an extension with a, I believe, a 15mm socket. Let's double check that real quick. Yep, 15mm socket to pop that in, and we should be good. On our factory bolt, I believe that's a little bit smaller. We're looking at, I think, 13. Yep, 13. So you'll need a 13mm and a 15mm socket, and then a wrench so that you can tie it up in there. Now, you will want to torque this as well. Ford has their listing for it. I am torquing both this bolt and this bolt the same to that Ford spec for our jounce bumper. So you'll want to look that up, or reach out to Ford if you cannot find that torque spec. thing I want to do is make sure that I have this angled the correct way, because when you tighten them down, sometimes they want to twist on you just a bit, and then the angle's not really right with the axle. So I'm going to get under here and make sure that I have it still sitting right. You might want to just kind of tighten it down first, a little bit crooked, because when we come back with the torque wrench, it'll, like I said, it'll want to slide just slightly. There we go. So here's exactly why you need this spacer. You can see, I mean, we're still razor close to the edge of our bracket here. So without that spacer, we'd definitely be coming down on our RAS system instead of actually hitting our axle tube. So with the wheel off, this is a pretty easy process here. We've got this side already done, and it's only been about 10 minutes here. So now we're just gonna repeat this same process over on the other side and then put our wheels back on, and we'll be all good to go. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the RoadActive Custom Leaf Spring Enhancement Kit here on our 2020 Ford F-150. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right suspension enhancement for your F-150, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department. We'd be happy to help you out on your journey. Now that we have our wheel back on and our lug nuts torqued down to spec, that's going to do it for the installation. Be sure to keep a lookout for after Michael's trip. We're going to see how this does and have another video for you just to really emphasize and kind of go over everything that he noticed while using the RAS system and kind of give you a good buyer's guide on if this is the right fit for you.